Welcome to this walkthrough of the Montreal Maintenance Centre of Via Rail. I'm Shane Segay and I'll be providing the English translation for this visit.
On est ici dans le centre de maintenance de Montréal de Via Rail.
We are here in the Montreal Maintenance Centre of Via Rail. The maintenance centre here in Montreal plays an important role for all of the Via Rail activities across Canada. For context, there are also maintenance centres in Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Toronto. Montreal plays an important role. The train cars and locomotives you see here are cars that run from Halifax to Vancouver. What you will see is that in the transportation ecosystem, there's often a lot of discussion on public transportation, but there's also all that is intercity transportation. The most heavily used intercity transport is what runs between Quebec City and Windsor, which is called the corridor. The corridor has received a lot of attention recently due to the proposals for HFR and HSR. It is also in the process of receiving new locomotives and rail cars, so its continued service is guaranteed and actively being renewed at this time. Today, we want to draw your attention to two other services at Via Rail that are very important. That is, long-distance routes and routes to remote communities. An example of a long-distance route is the route between Toronto and Vancouver, or between Montreal and Halifax. There are also routes for remote areas such as Winnipeg and Churchill. For all of these long-distance and remote routes, we make repairs to these cars and locomotives here in Montreal. These are very old cars and locomotives, which brings us to the purpose of today's visit. They were inherited when Via Rail was created, from the separation of passenger rail from CN and CP. These are cars that are over 60 to 70 years old. To give you an idea, when we talk about cars that have traveled long distances, each of the cars you see today have done the equivalent of 195 trips around the world. This is enormous. They have gotten to a point where they are close, very close, to their retirement. Therefore, this year, 2024, is a very important year for Via Rail. It is a very critical year because our analysis shows that we need to launch now the replacement process for procurement to replace this fleet. Why? Despite all the miracles we are continuously doing to keep these trains operational, which Andre will shortly explain in more detail, there is a limit to these efforts, and at a certain point, they just need to be replaced. A replacement of this sort does not happen in a couple years. We calculate that it would take 10 years to do so. Why? This is the other element that we will show you today during the visit. It's not just train cars with seats. There are also restaurant cars, dining cars, panoramic dome cars, kitchens on board, sleeper cars, and more. To give you an idea, the Toronto-Vancouver route is a route that takes about 4 days and 4 nights. Across the world, there are many long-distance routes, some quite mythical like the Orient Express. Here in Canada, we also have this kind of service, and the maintenance happens here in Montreal. Today, we will introduce you to some of the particularities of these cars. Currently, the impacts are small. However, over the next few years, if we can't replace them, there will be impacts. What could happen? Routes and departures may be cut or affected. Trains could be shorter due to lack of cars, capacity could be reduced, and so forth. So if it is status quo and there is no replacement by 2035, the long-distance routes will be affected. The corridor, Quebec City to Windsor, is about 1,500 kilometers long, while the overall VIA service is about 10,000 kilometers long. Therefore, it is important for us to start this process this year so that we can replace old cars that need to be retired with new ones to limit the impact.
attaché au dos.
OK. Bon, comme mentionné, ici, principalement, dans nos ateliers, on fait différents types de travaux.
In our workshops, we do different types of work. Our other workshops that you won't see during this visit handle work such as regular inspections, regulatory inspections. But here, we are in our maintenance workshop. That's where we're going to be doing some replacements, some minor projects, some regular maintenance each and every year when the cars are brought in, sometimes at different frequencies, but usually on average each and every year. We also do major projects, which you can see as an example behind me. Here, we are replacing water tanks for the drinking water service on board the trains, so the cars are lifted. We also have a structural inspection program to ensure the safety of passengers and ensure that the trains and cars continue to follow and meet the regulations and requirements of Transport Canada. The cars are also inspected annually and repaired to ensure the best customer experience, reliability, and safety. What you will see inside the other cars are more major repairs and interior refurbishments to make sure everything is up to date. This is all to maintain the usable life of these vehicles for the next 10 years or more. On the Trans-Canada route, the Canadian, for example, which is Toronto to Vancouver as one of the segments, there are usually 2 locomotives and about 20 cars of different types. We have 11 different types of cars at VIA, such as coaches with seats, dining rooms, luggage cars, sleepers, dome, and so on. Do we already see the impacts on the service? We often hear about late trains, which is in part due to the traffic on the rail lines from the freight trains. What has decreased for us is the number of cars in the fleet. In 2019, we had a little more than 200 cars, but now the fleet is reduced to about 175. This is because of some cars that needed a more exhaustive inspection and they were found to be no longer serviceable. This has forced us to cut some services in the West, certain frequencies and capacity, precisely due to the number of cars that we have remaining in the fleet. What we anticipate for the next 10 years as we continue our inspections and repairs is we will surely find more end-of-life cars that will also need to be removed from service and retired. That means shorter trains and less capacity to carry passengers. There are already lines now being serviced by shorter trains. A Canadian train is 20 cars, but at some point as we continue to reduce, the train gets shorter and smaller. There are also regional lines which can also be affected, like Quebec Centre or Churchill. These are all lines that over the next decade could see a decrease in the service to ultimately at the end become a service that is no longer viable and could be discontinued.
Don't recommend the kitchen, there's no space.
Non,
C'est la cuisine ici?
Ouais.
L'autre partie.
Juste attendre, j'allais tirer un peu les gens pour qu'on puisse rentrer.
Here we are in a diner car, which is a dining room with adjacent kitchen. As you can see, this is a major project. We have removed a large part of the interior. We do some refurbishments and some renovations for the customer experience, and we make sure to restore and upgrade reliability to different systems. We're talking about electrical systems, air conditioning systems, the whole kitchen, for the ergonomic aspect, the health and safety aspect, and for the chefs who work on board the trains. We make sure that the goal for each of the cars that go through the refurbishment program is always safety. Safety for our customers, safety for the passengers. In the next car after this one, you will see a dining car that was renewed by our teams here at the Maintenance Centre.
Il va falloir les gens qui veulent descendre.
Il va falloir également les remplacer pour le Canada, justement, parce que on va stationner le Canada à bord de ces trains-là année après année. Et c'est ce qu'on se passe au Rail. Mais en même temps, pour donner leur juste, c'est-à-dire que oui, comme on dit qu'il y aura des impacts, mais on veut ultimement éviter d'en aller à différentes services. On s'en va par là? Oui, on va y aller. Entre le corridor Québec et Windsor, et pour le reste des activités, c'est à remplacer.
Et rapidement, là, parce que vous l'avez vu, là, le corridor Québec-Windsor, le remplacement, ça va
It is the final product, with everything refreshed and redone, from the interior systems to structural, truly a major project. Again, on the Canadian, which is typically a train of 20 cars, there would be 3 dining cars like this on that train.
Oui, on peut continuer.
Vous voulez en action.
We do regular inspections on the locomotives during the night. But at least once a year, they come in here to the workshops for more exhaustive inspection and repairs. We also do the normal annual inspection, including all the repairs necessary. We also have a locomotive that is in for a complete overhaul, as you can see behind me. In fact, we are in the process of doing a prototype to define what we are going to do as far as work for the rest of the fleet. We have about 40 locomotives in the next 5 years that will have to be reconditioned in major ways as we wait to have replacements. Reliability declines year after year, so the repair workload continues to increase as time goes on. In comparison to the cars, the locomotives are more recent, between 30 and 40 years. But they are really due for major overhauls, midlife or end of life in this case. At the same time with all of this work, we are faced with other challenges such as acquiring replacement parts and pieces. Some of these manufacturers have not produced these pieces in 40 to 50 years, and some may not even be in business anymore. So we need to retro-engineer ourselves the parts, or turn to second-hand markets to get what we need, which causes additional delays in getting the repairs completed and the trains and locomotives and cars back on the rails.
OK. C'est correct? The Thunderdome. C'est assez à l'étroit.
Ouais, c'est compact.
But there's sleepers too, isn't there? OK. Abuse pas, là.
Finally, let's take a look at the Skyline Dome cars that typically run on the Canadian through the Rockies. As you can see, this is a car that has not been reconditioned. It still has its vintage look from back in the day. The inspection makes sure that it stays safe, that our critical systems, our main systems, are fully functional. Then eventually, they will go through a program of partial refurbishment to be able to have quality cars until their end of life. On this car, there is a dining room, a kitchen, a lounge, and then the observatory dome on the top level to give passengers great views all around, which is really appreciated and loved by our passengers and clients.
intéressant.
Oui, certainement.
Thank you for watching our walkthrough of the Montreal Maintenance Centre of Via Rail. Be sure to subscribe to Railfans Canada so you do not miss our future content.